This is the Haulin Assets podcast, where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast, episode number 114. Today we're talking about September 2022 financials, which is actually, I don't know if you knew this, a synonym for chaos. It's chaos. We'll get to that in a moment. My name is Craig. Over there, he is Chris. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well. How about you, Craig?
Not too bad. I was just telling Chris before we got started. I'm tired. My tailbone hurts, and my right ankle hurts a little bit from that gas pedal. I drove 2,500 miles over the course of about 8 days. Basically 2 weekends worth of a lot of driving. And as I got ready to tell Chris that, I went, wait a minute, I'm barking up the wrong tree. I'm not getting any sympathy here.
No sympathy from us. That's like a slow week. What are you talking about? 2,500 miles? That's nothing. I will say now, after doing this podcast with you, I've seen the interiors that you guys are working with, and those things are pretty luxe. Okay, yeah. You got some floating castles that you guys are driving around there. Doing it in a little Mazda, a little different. It's different. That's true. Hopefully you didn't put any diesel in your Mazda. You've got that all. Seems like you've kind of, for the most part, got that figured out.
No,
between gas and diesel.
You know what I put in my Mazda?
What do you put in it?
Gas.
There you go. You can say it. That's an appropriate time to say gas pedal and gas.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
You're okay. You're not going to have to bleep that one out.
That's exactly. Yeah, I don't want to create more work for myself, Chris. No, don't be ridiculous. Now, as we get started, obviously, I got to let everybody know HaulinAssetsLLC.com is where you can go check out full show notes, the documents that we're going to be talking about, including the profit and loss statement, and a few other things that you can look at during these financials episodes. So go there, make your comments, find us on Facebook. We got a nice response to the last episode that we did. So it seems like some people found that enjoyable or helpful, and so hopefully you did too. And if you enjoy what we're doing, or if you have suggestions for what we can do better, we love to hear them. Head to Facebook, Haulin Assets Podcast on Facebook. It's really easy to find. All right.
And Chris, go to Apple, iTunes, or Google Play and leave us a review.
If you must. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a great idea.
Since we're asking for things, I've got one more ask I want to.
Is this we don't even have a Santa here for you to sit on his lap and make wishes, but all right, go for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't ask for much from the audience, but I'm going to ask for something today.
All right.
I'm going to use this platform to hopefully help a friend out, a soldier that I am, that's in my unit that I'm close to and have gotten a little bit closer to in the last month, had a pretty tragic event several weeks ago. He owns a tree cutting business, so entrepreneur like a lot of the folks that listen to this podcast, and the anchor branch that he was anchored to broke. And he fell 40 feet onto a shed, broke his back, probably not going to walk again. So pretty tough, and there's a GoFundMe page for him. His name's Dade, Dayde Collin. So you can either search that, or I'll also have a link for it in the show notes for episode 114. You can go look that up. But if you can, every little bit helps. 5, 10, 50, $100. If you would, as a listener of this audience, help this buddy out a little bit. He's got some challenges ahead with his family. He's got 4 little kids. He's just turned, I think he's about 30 years old. So not very old, has a big life ahead of him. And one of the things that's been kind of cool about this whole situation, both he and his wife have just had incredible attitudes, and they're the kind of people that are, dust themselves off and make the best of the situation, and they're doing that. But they're
going to need some help.
They're going to need some help. Yeah, there's a lot of medical bills, and he's hoping to go to a spinal rehab place in Denver, so he can't just hop in a car and go. He's got to go with an ambulance. They've got to take him, and
wow.
So that's not cheap.
That's pricey. Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll put that in the show notes, like you said. That's going to be the easiest way to do it, obviously. So check out the show notes. Yes, you can do that at HaulinAssetsLLC.com, but the show notes will also be in whatever platform you listen to this on. So just scroll over there and click on that link. And yeah, like you said, Chris, $5-10 can go a long way. When we're talking about thousands of people listening to a podcast and some percentage of those giving in, if it's only $5, give them $5.
Every little
that would
bit
be
helps.
Really great. All right. So, Chris, anything else you want to go over before we get into our September numbers?
Let's talk a little bit about the economic conditions. We're coming into fourth quarter at this point. By the time this episode airs, we'll be about a month into the fourth quarter push, and things are a little bit weird. They're different than they have been. The freight market's not the same. We haven't seen the traditional bump for fourth quarter rates yet. They've kind of held steady. I'm hoping we still get a little bit, but I don't think we're going to get the normal big fourth quarter bump that we typically have. I think it'll go up some, but not a ton.
Like I said, the word of the day today is chaos. And if anything marks 2022, I think, that word might be chaos. It's just been a very, very strange year with odd ups and downs that kind of defy the norm of what we're seeing in a year like this. And so I guess in that way, it makes sense that we haven't quite seen the bump that we might normally, but hey, who knows? It's a weird year. Maybe it'll still come.
I think there will be some bump. It's just a matter of how big and when it actually hits, and how long it lasts. It may be one of those things that only lasts for a month this year. And, that's one of those things where you just kind of have to.
That's how it goes.
Yep. And, a lot of people, one of the questions, we've addressed this a few times over the last several months, that people ask is, well, is now a good time to start a business? And I still think it kind of depends. I think now more than ever, it's more important to make sure that you're well set up and well prepared to start. You've got a good little bit of a slush fund. There's some advantages to right now. One, truck prices are coming back down, but interest rates have gone up, so that's probably negates that a little bit. But another thing is in my experience, when people start out in an environment like this, it teaches them really good financial habits, because to survive, you have to be disciplined with how you do things. And then in the long term, you keep using those lessons years down the road. And so when things do get really good, you've got those habits developed, and you're smart about how you do things, and you can make even more money in the long run. And so everybody's situation's a little bit different, and it's important to kind of keep that in mind. You can always go to Motor Carrier HQ and talk to one of the business coaches and just bounce your ideas off of them, and they can kind of give you an idea of what costs are and help you kind of build a little bit of a game plan. And whether you pull the trigger today or 2 years down the road makes no difference to us.
Right. And it's not that it makes no difference to you, but like you've said in the past, there are ups, there are downs. We seem to be in a bit of a down right now, but like you said, there are lessons to be learned. And those lessons might be even more valuable than making a crap ton of money in your first year. Yeah. In the long run, right? Because anybody could have made money in 2021, right? Yeah, it was nuts.
You had to be making some pretty big mistakes not to make money last year.
And so so if you started a business in 2021, awesome, you made a bunch of money. Hope you also availed yourself of the habits that Chris tries to teach. Anyway, so all right. Well, anything else on that subject you want to talk about?
Let's dive into the numbers.
All right, let's get numbers. So, Chris, what happened in September? Well, hang on. Should we table set?
Yeah.
Oh, I always want to go back just for context, a couple months beforehand. So there were 3 straight months kind of over the summer of anemic growth at best, if not losses.
Flat.
Right?
Pretty flat for 3 months.
And then September was okay. I'm trying to remember.
August
was pretty good.
No, August actually we dropped. We lost money in August.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then
this is why we do this, Chris.
We made money in August. So yeah, I can't even get my story straight. July was a pretty big loss.
Yes.
August we did decent. And now we're talking about September.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, we're recording in October.
Yeah.
Man,
this is a live show, basically.
never do math or calendaring live, Chris. Okay. All right. No, but I guess my point just being, it's been a struggle over the last 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
With some downs, small downs and small ups. So where are we this month?
So we had a decent up last month, right?
Mm-hmm,
so, I mean, we've got to have a down this month, right? That's kind of the way it's been going. And the pattern's holding true. We'll put it that way.
Okay.
Although the loss this month was a pretty small loss, probably our smallest loss. Now, but it's still a loss nonetheless.
And we'll get to why that may be. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. There was an expense, a pretty big expense that hadn't yet hit, and that may have hit the books in September.
It did.
And so, we'll probably get to that when we talk about the P&L.
A couple of those. Talk about that.
All right. So let's start then with the numbers. Total miles run. Let's start there with how many trucks? It should be 8 trucks on the road?
Should be 8 trucks on the road, but we've actually had, we've had some, I don't know if I want to call them driver issues, but we did have one driver quit and another driver that we let go. Mm-hmm. And so we've actually, for a lot of September, we've had 2 trucks sitting. And the reason behind that, part of it too, is that Nate and I were both on military duty the end of September, the whole last half of September at the same time. There is a really interesting episode that is coming down the pipe. I don't know if it's a month from now or 2 months from now, about what happened in September while Nate and I were on military duty. The timing was not very good. And it complicated things on being able to get one truck that we already had empty filled, and then the second truck that became empty unexpectedly that we had to put a driver in. And so it's taken a little bit of time to get that second driver in.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So a lot of issues then.
Yeah.
6 trucks on the road for most of the month.
Yeah.
And what's the mileage?
So the mileage was 78,386, which is actually a record.
Yeah.
But it should have been higher with 8. You know, we own 8 trucks. We should have had 8 on the road, and 8 trucks, we should have been closer to like 90,000 miles.
Yeah. So it's tempting to say, hey, the graph is going up and to the right. We win. But there's more than one graph at play here.
Yeah.
And the number of trucks and the expenses associated with that is also going up and to the right. Yeah. So you got to outpace that.
And so 78,000, that's closer to, you know, what you should see with 6 trucks on the road.
Right. So with 8 trucks, you're shooting for more like 90 plus.
Yeah, a little over 90.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's your total miles. What about Deadhead miles out of those 78,000 plus?
4,094, which is 5.2%, which is good.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Nothing remarkable there. Total revenue comes in at what number, Chris?
$187,637.46. Another record.
Yeah. I was going to say, Chris, I want you to stop there, just pause and mentally go back to the first 6 months of us doing this podcast, and then say that monthly revenue number again, you know, 180. So what did you, 187 and change.
Yeah.
So I'm
that's
just
some pretty good growth in 3 years. I mean, that's pretty good.
Well, I mean, and you talked about, you know, last week or 2 weeks ago, I guess, the episode where you said, you know, maybe we grew a little too aggressively, for reasons that we talked about in that episode. But yeah, I'm not saying that this is like a pure pro or con or whatever, just remarkable.
It is.
What those numbers have done.
Pretty cool.
In 3 years. All right. So 187,637 and 46 cents, because Chris loves to not round things off, gives us an all-in rate per mile of what, Chris?
$2.39.
Okay. That's another drop then.
It is a little bit of a drop, not a huge drop. And it is actually, if you look at the last 6 months, it's better than average over the last 6 months. So all in all, not great, not terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So all in all then, with those numbers in mind, you said there was a loss this month. How much of a loss are we talking about?
It's kind of funny as I'm looking at this number, like I think earlier, you know, in the last couple of minutes, I've referred to it as a small loss.
Yeah.
$5,326.76. I mean, $5,000 that's a pretty good mortgage payment if we're talking about houses. So
that's a huge mortgage payment for somebody like me. Okay.
I think for most of us. That's
I was going to say,
that's a pretty big mortgage payment.
If I had a mortgage payment of over $5,000, I'd know I'd made it in life. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's kind of all about perspective. So
Sure.
$5,000 is a lot of money, but if you think about a percentage of our revenue, I mean, it's a probably, I'm again, don't do math live, but we're going to try to do math live in my head nonetheless.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I mean, it's under 3%. So it's not that, it's really not that big of a number.
Right. And again, to my point of, hey, go back for 2 or 3 years, think about what, the humble origins of Haulin Assets and, what sounds like a disaster in that time now is like, oh, that's absorbable for now.
It is. You don't want a 3% loss month after month after month. But, if it happens here and there, it's not going to be the end of the world. And, again, it's one of those things, we've been saving money. And so it's not killing us.
Yeah. Well, Chris, let's dive in then to the details on this, why the loss came about. I already referenced, some expenses that we knew were coming that finally came due in September. But what else do you want to talk about, that or any other numbers?
Just one thing altogether. There's really a lot of things that kind of came together in this month. You talked about chaos. If you think about last month, in the episode, I referred to the profit and loss statement as being kind of a generic profit and loss statement, just because there wasn't anything that really stuck out. Well, this one's kind of the opposite of that. There's a lot of things that have stuck out that kind of have made, that explain why there was a loss. And several of these things are one-time expenses that just all happen to fall together in the same month and cause this. So let's kind of walk through some of those things.
Yeah.
So the first one is under bank charges. The bank charges are way higher than normal. And most of that, about $2,500 of it, is a loan origination fee for
one of the trucks or 2 of the trucks.
I think it was a couple trailers, and I can't remember exactly what it's for, a truck and a trailer for some of the new equipment that we're bringing online.
Yeah. Okay. So $2,500 in just loan origination
fees. So it's like,
that's money that you're just giving the bank. That's not payments for the truck or for the trailer or nothing like that. It's just here's your $2,500.
Bye. Thanks for
charging me that interest rate.
It's like the pay to play, right? It's like in poker, it's
that's your ante.
Your ante. Yeah.
All right. So, what else? There were some damages that needed repairing.
Yeah.
We talked about this a couple months ago, the driver that you had to let go. There were some
issues. This is the second driver we've had to let go.
Oh,
part of it. So
second one.
About 8,000 of that, it's about $12,500. 8,000 of it was the second half of a payment for damages that a driver that we let go a couple months ago caused. Yeah. And so then there's another about 4,500 of it that came from the incident in September that I keep referring to. I'm still not quite ready to talk about.
It's too painful.
It's too painful. Plus there's a few things that kind of still need to work themselves out before I feel like I can paint a full picture of what's gone on. So it'll be entertaining once it happens.
Oh boy.
So I'm going to keep teasing this one as long as I possibly can.
Look at that.
With
what
the
a pro.
best smile on my face that I can possibly muster, as inside I've got this turmoil and I'm
just chaos, Chris. It's just chaos. You can't do anything about it. Just accept it. All right. So what else with you said that 12.5K in expenses. You already went over both of those. Nothing more in there. There's
another $10,000 in repairs and maintenance that happened in September, which is for the size of fleet that we've got, and a lot of that's with the 2 older trucks. It's within, I would say, the margin of normal, but kind of on the higher side. And so that's a little bit more than normal, but I'm not really contributing that to the loss, because for the most part, it's kind of just the normal operating expenses.
Now, that I did want to ask if, and this may be this. Okay, no, not maybe. This is a topic for a different day, but I just want to kind of put the seed in your mind. this was actually something that was brought up in last week's mega comment response that we did. What was his name? Eric, thank you. Yeah. Eric said, hey, have you, at least according to my memory, have you reconsidered your stance on buying used versus new and all that? And, now that you're seeing the difference in maintenance costs and whatnot, I think that'd be a really interesting topic to revisit.
I haven't really dove into the numbers yet. I've got my suspicions.
You were so close, Chris. It's dived.
Yeah, dived. Yeah. There we go. Okay, whatever. English is not my best subject. I'm a numbers guy, remember? Spreadsheets?
That's right. Live math.
So it's going to be an interesting, fascinating. I've got kind of the direction I think it will go, but I haven't really dove into the numbers well enough yet to really be able to answer that question. And it's definitely one of the things that I've got pretty high up. It won't be too much longer before we really start to dive into that. And it'll be at least one episode, maybe more.
All right. Chris, I've got a question for you. Now, moving on to the next part of our P&L. What is HVUT?
So it's heavy vehicle use tax.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. 2290 is what a lot of other, it's commonly referred to as a 2290 because you pay it on the 2290 tax form, goes to the IRS, U.S. Treasury, and it goes straight into the transportation fund. And so it's one of those things that helps build road infrastructure. Most of the truck drivers.
Are you accusing the U.S. government of actually being somewhat accountable with one of its funds?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I can fully endorse that.
I'm just messing with you. It's just so often stuff goes into a slush fund and you never quite know where it comes out.
With my time that I've 26 years in the military, I cannot endorse the government spending practices. So you're never going to hear me full on say, yeah, the government's done a good job there. I see too much of how the sausage is made.
So this what did you had a name for it?
Heavy vehicle use tax.
But do you just say HVUT?
Most people, if they're going to say something, they're going to call it the 2290 tax.
The 2290.
Because that's the form. The 2290 is the number of the form that you pay the tax on.
And that grows as your fleet grows. I'm sure.
So it's basically for every 80,000 pound truck that you've got, any truck over, I think 55,000 pounds has to pay it. It's on a sliding scale. When you get up to 80,000 pounds, which is the max, it's $550 a year.
Okay. All right. So what's it up to now then for Haulin Assets?
So we paid for the full year on 8 of those trucks, or 7 of the trucks, and one of them we paid a partial year. So basically in September, one of them may have hit in October, I can't remember, but in September, nonetheless, we paid about $4,500 in the heavy vehicle use tax.
And that's an annual tax?
It's an annual tax. It's due the end of August every year. And it goes towards infrastructure. And most trucking companies that I've ever talked to would tell you, if I knew they were going to do a better job maintaining the roads, I'd pay more money into that.
Right.
Fix the potholes.
Oh my gosh.
Keep the roads so they're smooth and you don't have to, you don't have as much congestion and other things. If we could have better infrastructure, the more money a trucking company can make.
Exactly. Yeah. If I was going to say back to our joking a minute ago, if you had faith that it would actually be used really well, it's yes, fine. Take an extra 2% because I'm going to save 8% on repairs and whatnot. Yeah, that makes sense.
Save that suspension.
Now, Chris, I got one more question from the P&L, and that's the travel. Okay. Now, this is a trucking company. There's a whole lot of traveling going on, but now there's an expense under travel. Yeah. What's that about?
So the travel expense happens every once in a while, but it's usually smaller amounts. Like if Nate or I are moving a truck around and we have to park the truck somewhere and Uber somewhere else.
Oh, gotcha.
We'll use that. But this month it was about $500, which we didn't have $500 in Uber fees. This $500 and travel has to do with the incident that shall not be named.
Oh, Are we just going to call it the incident now?
Maybe the incident. The incident of September 2022.
I'm really excited. Like the incident that will one day be named.
It will one day be named. Yeah, we'll shed some light on it at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, anything else you want to highlight from the profit and loss for September 2022?
So, just to kind of wrap it all up, there was basically $20,000 in one-time expenses that aren't normal monthly expenses. And so if you factor that into it, our loss, it just kind of makes the loss a little bit more palatable.
Right. It stings less because it wasn't like, hey, everything went perfectly and we lost money. It was, hey, this thing happened. Next month, that thing is, fingers crossed, knocking on wood, not going to happen. Yeah. And so it makes it feel a little less stinging, I suppose. All right. Well, very good. Chris, do you have any impact tips today? I do. Oh, you do?
I do.
Good. I had one chambered and ready just in case.
Good.
You didn't have.
We'll save that for another day.
There you go.
That's good.
What's yours?
It's try to manage your time off.
Oh, okay.
We mentioned fourth quarter push. Freight rates are usually and even this quarter, even this year, it's the same. They're typically about the best rates of the year, and so it's also holiday time. So people are wanting to take more time off, but I would say as much as you possibly can, try to limit the time off and encourage people to take time off in January, February, when the rates are traditionally the lowest of the year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So manage your time off. Now, how does that work for somebody who's not managing people, who's just managing themselves?
So I would say the same thing. Whether it's yourself or you're managing drivers, I would try to encourage your drivers, say, hey, let's push hard through the fourth quarter, take as little time off as we possibly can, and then let's take more of it off in January, even if you have to give some kind of incentive or bonus or something like that. I was just
going to ask about that. Is there anything that you do or that you would recommend to kind of incentivize that? Because if I'm an employee driver, I'm looking at that going, well, right, that's great for you, but I want my holiday time off.
And so. I've just kind of really recently been thinking about this, doing something like that. So we haven't really initiated it for this year, but I think it's something that Nate and I are going to talk about and potentially do next year is, if you take limit your days off to so much during the fourth quarter, we'll give you this kind of a bonus or something like that. And I'm just kind of brainstorming, thinking out loud now. I have no idea what we'll do, but
right.
That's an idea that comes to my mind.
Right. Your drivers are all listening, Chris. And so, anything you say is now law. All right. Well, very good. So manage your time off, whether it's yours or those you manage.
And I would say with a caveat.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's worth it to have somebody sacrifice if it's going to damage a relationship. So like if you're an owner operator and you're like, yeah, I don't mind, I'll stay out on the road, but your spouse is like, no, I don't.
Right.
That could potentially sacrifice or damage that relationship. Usually, to earn a few extra bucks, it's probably not worth it.
Not going to be worth it.
If it's going to damage your relationship with your driver, it's probably not worth it. Don't force somebody to do something that they don't want to do and you can get away without doing it. Do you have to have everybody running with minimal time off in the fourth quarter? No, it'll be better for the business if it does. Try to make it worth it for the drivers to do that.
Right. I was just going to caveat your caveat by saying keep it reasonable. Right. So you say don't damage the relationship, but if they're being unreasonable, then, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. So caveats abound. September is chaos. And I'm really glad that everybody listened to this week's episode.
Absolutely.
There's our wrap up. So again, HaulinAssetsLLC.com for full show notes. You can comment there, but it seems more popular for people to comment over on Facebook. So go find us on Facebook. It's just Haulin Assets Podcast. And very easy to find. And like Chris said in the beginning, go ahead and leave a review wherever you are. And
and donate today.
And donate today. That's the one I was forgetting.
Please.
Definitely, if you never do this time, scroll down on the show notes. Look for that link. We really do appreciate it. I know that Dave and his family will appreciate it. And other than that, Chris, I think we're good to call it for this week. So I will see you next time.
See you then.